right, here we go. Welcome back, everyone. Coast to Coast NHL podcast. Here with Mr. Maverick, Tori, once again, episode 38. We're here, and we're ready to break it down through the weeks. We want to touch base quickly. Tori's going to kick things off, going over something we talked about last week with the prospects. I think he learned some things and wants to bring everyone back up to speed, including myself. So
Yeah, I mean it's not gonna be something too long just because full transparency, I'd rather wait until we have maybe a full show or at least half a show where we can kind of go over this one topic because I am also kind of gathering more information, but I did realize that there was a few things that I was kind of incorrect on when I was speaking in terms of specifically sending players out for loan. Under the topic that I was saying, will there be prospects who basically try to skip the draft in a sense to get with NHL teams? When I was under the assumption and said basically they'd have the training and the coaching, that actually would not be accurate. So basically, long story short, is you'd have 2 years of ownership. So whatever team X drafts you, you could sit 2 years and then become a free agent. Or because you're probably not an elite player, you're probably waiting for a year before you get your entry-level contract. So do you want to wait 2 or 3 years instead of the 2 or 4 years we were kind of discussing? Yeah. I know I'm kind of throwing a lot of numbers and stuff around quick here. But basically there is a way around it. There is still the loophole or the potential loophole that I was trying to exploit or illustrate. But it's just a slightly different avenue. And I'll be excited to kind of get into that a little bit more detail. But anyone that was wondering or had questions on the last show, just kind of hold off on those, obviously, because I want to get into it more in a little bit.
Yeah, we have, I think, one of our most not info pack, but like there's most topics we've had in a number of shows. I guess it's been a busy week around the NHL, some retirements, some suspensions, some unfortunate passing away. So. And of course, we want to hit on our 3 stars, which is one of our favorite segments, if not our only segment. And it is that time of the year where we're about midway through the season. So we want to kind of look back on how we predicted at the beginning of the season how things were going to look, and we update where we think the standings are going to look at the end of the season with half of the season complete. So it's going to be a little bit longer, hopefully not too much longer of overall show, but we're going to rip through some of these topics that quickly, and then touch base on those other bigger ones a little bit more in length. So first things first here, we got, well, I don't know too much about him, but Walter Gretzky passed away this past week, Wayne Gretzky's father. You put it on here, so I'll let you kind of take the reins on this.
I just thought it would be a lack of responsibility if we didn't mention something. Just obviously, he's kind of the Canadian hockey dad. When it all comes down to it, and obviously everyone has their time. It's unfortunate, but it's every story you hear about is nothing but positive, and nothing but positive for the sport of hockey as well. Both the Walter and his son, obviously, well, all 3 of them have kind of put blood, sweat, and tears into the world of hockey, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of just respect due, obviously. And I got to meet him one time, which was pretty cool. Looking back, obviously, but I thought the one thing that was really cool, I saw a video, people were tapping their sticks, just kind of like a final goodbye or whatever, along the street in Brantford. I think that's where it was anyways. I know that that's their hometown.
Yeah,
I just wasn't exactly sure
where
it was, but they had people lined up, hundreds of people lined up with hockey sticks, just tapping the ice or tapping the ground, pretending it was on the ice. It was pretty cool. I thought that was
cool.
neat.
A little tribute, yeah, definitely from, like you said, hometown. If that's, I'm assuming that's where, somewhere around there.
Probably was there. Sense, yeah. But wherever the procession was, or whatever that, I think that's the right word.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay. We got Brent Seabrook finally hanging it up, which he hasn't been playing this season. He's on the long-term IR, so I guess he's finally come to the conclusion he's not going to be able to be an injury that he comes back from. Big part of the Chicago Blackhawks and their runs, playoff runs over the years, and I know Duncan Keith has come out and said too that like basically they're like best friends. It's like guy's been his partner and they've been on the defensive core on that team for a long time now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big loss for the Chicago Blackhawks in general.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it sucks for them as well. And I think it's more trying to get out of his cap a little bit. There's probably a little bit of cap maneuvers going on. I don't even want to say manipulations or anything because it's not a negative per se. It's just, hey, if you can't do this again, we got to kind of get you off the books. And the one thing that kind of scares me a little bit is Jonathan Toews. There was an update this past week on him, and basically the update is there is no update. He's still not feeling great. He's still not feeling energetic. He doesn't feel right. So, I mean, months later, it could be, I don't want to say as simple as anxiety because that's not a simple thing.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the grand scale, like the thing that I keep thinking back on is who was it Bickle, Brian Bickle, who was diagnosed with MS a couple of years back on the Chicago Blackhawks.
I don't remember.
And his career basically was ended kind of because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, it makes me wonder if this is something that's, above where he can come back from it. Maybe it is something medical that's like maybe the Blackhawks of what we know are over.
Yeah, it's been a lot of hush-hush, and honestly, I don't even know. I couldn't tell you what the reason was Toews wasn't in. I just knew he was out for the season, per se.
Yeah.
And for you to say there's the update is no update like that, could be a long. Who knows what it could be in. Like you said, Blackhawks. This is like a change of guard. Just on top of that,
Mm-hmm.
Kane had his 1,000th game in this past week as well. So it's been like
Mm-hmm.
Blackhawks little news update here for everyone.
And like you got to think Crawford retired as well. I think he retired, or at least he's out long term with his medical issue. So like the Blackhawks.
He's on
again,
a
as we
different
know,
team
it are
now,
pretty
isn't
much
he?
over.
I think he's
So like
on a different roster.
he signed with New Jersey,
Yeah.
but then he never played.
Yeah.
So, but what I was getting at is that like maybe if Kane does have the desire to leave Chicago, or if maybe he does have the desire to play for his hometown team, maybe this has given it or made it easier for him.
Yeah.
To be like, that's a different chapter and it already closed regardless on whether or not I stay.
Yeah.
Like it could still be the same chapter, kind of not really, but it could be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of years with the Blackhawks. But they're also doing good this year. So
my prediction is Kane is a Blackhawk his whole career.
You think so?
Yeah, it's just the Blackhawks are one of those prestigious teams, right? Original six. When he's been there since he was a teenager, so like Chicago becomes your home, like your home city. I don't know. I just get that vibe from him that he loves it there, definitely.
If the Sabres were like set up where they had everything going, they hit on all their draft picks, and they look like they're gonna go on a 4 or 5 year run, and he literally would make the difference. Maybe he would consider that, but I tend to think the same thing with you. That like, why would you leave? Why would you chance that? Like everything's built for you there. You've played that many games. The amount of games you played because of playoffs in that franchise, you can set some serious records and put yourself in the books, like cement yourself in the books of history. So like, I don't think there's much reason.
A discussion. Me and Jesse earlier this week we're discussing whether Kane is considered the best American hockey player of all time. It's tough to come up with
I'm not good with these conversations because I'm kind of naive to like stuff before I was born.
True.
Like I'm not very good at that. So like if you were to ask me in the last 20 years, I could speak on that. If you were to say ever, it's hard for me to speak on that. But I would have to assume we're talking about what? Brett Hull, Mike Modano. Those are probably off the top of my head.
Those two came to my mind right away, and Chris Chelios was another one that got thrown around too.
On D, yeah.
So I'm with you. I agree. It's hard to say about before my time too, because like immediately my mind goes to growing up, which Americans are the ones that are there, and it's funny. I don't know. Like I don't know about the Miracle on Ice teams. I can't speak. So
exactly,
I'm naive, and I would insult someone by not even considering some of those players, right?
It's not my cup of tea. I'm not a history guy. I like moving forward. You know me, I like prospects, stuff like that, which is on the other end of the spectrum,
And I
right?
like the
So
here and now and what's happening tonight, right?
yeah,
That's kind of
yeah,
my style as well. So,
yeah.
all right, moving on. Let's talk about the craziness going on in Calgary right now. I guess they fired their coach. Believe it or not, if we asked this question, I think last week, which coach would be fired by next podcast, we wouldn't have guessed this guy.
No.
We both probably would have guessed Kruger, and surprise, he's still around, and they're back from their road trip. I know we talked about that. They're back,
Yeah,
and he's coaching right
I
now
don't
at a
know.
home game. So who knows what's going on there? But
I think that's because they scored 4 goals last game, and they're like, maybe. And then, yeah. Anyways.
yeah. So Calgary makes the coaching change. Honestly, they never really set in a new coach since the whole Peters thing last season. They didn't really get a new guy kind of thing. He's kind of like interim at the no.
I think this is the 7th coach they've hired since Sutter was the coach 4 years ago.
It's funny. Daryl
So I saw
Sutter,
some
yeah.
stat like that.
Daryl Sutter's back in Alberta, which it's funny growing up, going back. He's like the staple behind the bench. I remember as a kid too. So I don't know, like
Yeah.
Daryl
Yeah.
Sutter. He's been around a couple. He's bounced around a little bit since Calgary, right? He was LA, I think, for a little bit.
LA.
Um,
Yep.
I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of this. I don't know history. I know he's been in the past, but I don't know. I'm not. I think it's time for some of these people to take pages out of what the Leafs have done and start hiring some new blood with new ideas. And I don't see this being a big game changer for Calgary personally.
Yeah, there was actually some uproar today, um, especially with it being International Women's Day recently.
Mm-hmm.
And just lots of talk about, being the boys club and stuff like that. There's a lot of comments just being like, really, again, like there wasn't anybody who potentially was of color or of
Yeah.
female that could have, potentially been better here, which is a valid point, and it kind of just feeds in to the topic we talked about before about how some people just maybe don't quite fit in, and that's a problem because it
Yeah.
shouldn't be about fitting.
It should. I don't know. Like, I'm a big business guy, and like you see these, it takes a certain kind of guy, and like these new businesses come into left field. Like it's because they're innovative. They're innovating. If we keep recycling the same old, and like when Torres finally loses his job in Columbus and gets rehired, I'm gonna have the same opinion. Like we need to stop recycling these same 40, 45 coaches and like
Because they did something 6 years ago
yeah.
or 9 years ago or whatever.
Yeah, it's time for the boomers to step aside and let us millennials start taking the reins and running some of these businesses, including coaching. Like, let us have some
Oh,
coaches, right?
look at some of the successes, even outside of hockey, some of the baseball executives and some of the football executives and some of these other coaches and stuff that are being hired here and there and assistant coaches that are not of the norm. Like you're seeing these different ideas, these different philosophies now creeping in and making impacts. Whether or not they're getting credit for them and
Yeah,
who gets the credit, that's a different question. But it's 2020, 2021. Like things are different now. Like it's just things
yeah.
are different. And if people don't want to recognize that or appreciate that or whatever, then
hmm
that's on them.
Maybe it has to do with like the COVID season. He's familiar with the Calgary. He'll be an easy transition in. But like again, who on this team was even around? First of all, when he was here before, probably not many.
I think it's a different situation than that, though.
Yeah.
I think it's different. I think because when he was brought into LA, I don't know if you remember this. I believe I'm correct on this when I say this. Is that whoever the coach was at the time was just not quite working,
hmm
and they brought him in to be like,
A
okay,
transition
we
guy.
have the team that is ready to go for it. We just need the guy to milk everything we have out of it. I think the plan in Calgary is, hey, if this doesn't work, it's time to blow it up. Like
Mm.
I think that we're there, and I think they're saying, you know what, this is the coach to do it, and if he can't do it, it's time to wave the flag, and this
Yeah.
is the final straw.
This makes sense, and I think we'll dive into it a little bit when we talk about the standings in the North,
Hmm.
because the North in that little area is a little interesting. All right, let's
Mhm.
fire this off then. Evander Kane in the
Yeah.
news again. I don't. You brought this to my attention that there's an article and the debts, his overall debts and assets and all that came out, where essentially his debts are, from the number zero here, almost triple what his assets are. So that's just
2.5, 3 times. Yeah.
yeah, that's just a recipe for disaster. I know we talked about Evander Kane probably 5, 6 pods ago when it first came out about his
Yeah.
debts and his gambling and all that problems. So
Mm.
it's here now. I guess it's more present and aware of what maybe the San Jose Sharks can't just sit here and hopefully it goes away now. It's going.
Mhm.
It's going.
We always talk, or I always say that if you have time, use it. That time's running out.
Yep.
There's not much time left here. And I mean, I don't think we should really get into a whole lot of stuff about it because obviously, there's no good in kicking sand in somebody's eyes while they're down, or
Yeah, of course.
Kane's dealing with his troubles, and like I don't think everyone needs to talk about it. But from a hockey perspective, if you are the San Jose Sharks as an organization and you look at it and there's debtors who say basically like, are you willing to sign, saying this is guaranteed money, and something happens, Kane gets in a car accident, can't perform, or he has an aneurysm, passes away or something, they're still responsible.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think they're responsible at death, but if he's like regardless, this is where I don't know a lot about it.
Yeah,
But still,
there's a lot of stuff that's going to be involved in like being the employer of a guy, and when it comes to having debts and all that stuff, just I forget the word that is used, but taking a portion of each thing automatically going to the debts, it's just going to be a bunch of legal issues, and I don't know, like I was surprised to see him when we talked about it last time to actually play the season. So I'm going to continue to be surprised if his career continues to play. Maybe the rest of the season makes sense because he's already here, but I don't know. Like
unless it's forced hand.
I'll be interested. I'm interested in just like because I don't know how this stuff works. So we haven't really had.
It's unprecedented, really.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Something new to our realm that we're not really familiar with, nor do we have real, structure to guess on how it's going to happen. And the reason I guess I brought it up and why I think it's important to talk about is I do believe like legitimately at any time, an hour from now, overnight, next week, a random Monday in April, some random day in May, like they might say, we got to do it now. Like we got to do it now. And if that's the case, like I think part of it too is if it was another team that wasn't aging and strapped in and cap issues and whatever, maybe they might consider sticking with him and trying to find a way through. I mean, he's a good player, right? Like, it's his loss. He's not getting paid, but it's not necessarily the organization's. So it's on their benefit to try and find a way to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
But for a team like them who could be pretty screwed, it might be in their best interest to just walk away.
If it can work, if there's a way around all that stuff, yeah.
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 I mean, you lose a good talent, he'll probably end up signing somewhere else if he ever comes back for nothing. But that's not really your problem to solve, right? Like that's something that you weren't expecting. You got to kind of just walk away at that point if this is where we're heading. But should be interesting.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
All right, another topic that's fine. It took a little while to surface this season, but it surfaces every season. It's the whole hit to the heads. What's a bad hit? What's a good hit? Tom Wilson, repeat offender extraordinaire. He's back at it again, and what was it? 7-game suspension.
7.
For his hit on. I'm gonna get it wrong.
Brendan Carlo.
There it is. So, I guess we'll just. It is what it is. Like he's a repeat offender. He hit.
Well, technically he's not.
No. Well, yeah. It got called a boarding, and not a hit to a head. So I guess if it was actually considered a hit to a head, it would have been a much larger suspension.
See, I mean, I know we were chatting at first, and we tend to be in the minority on this, and like, you never want to see anyone get hurt. You never want to, have the recklessness in your game. But if you put yourself in Tom Wilson's shoes, he's a repeat offender. He knows this. Like, he can't be that dumb. Like, he's got to know that. So he's got to pick his opportunities much better. In this instance, he committed to the hit maybe a little early so that he couldn't bail out of it. And that's probably where the problem of it all is that the NHL wants players to be like, oh crap, I can crush this guy and put him in the hospital, or I can lay up. And I think the NHL is trying to train their players to lay up.
Yeah.
And I think that that's why it's a penalty. I agree. It probably should have been, you're out of this game. You probably charged a little bit. You committed to laying the hit a little early. I don't think he jumped.
Nope.
The contact was kind of to the head, but like when you're standing down like this, where you can't get to the chest, where are you supposed to hit if you can't get to your target? Like at that point, I get it. If you want them to bail, they need to bail, which means you need to be in control. But in terms of suspensions, I don't
agree with
I don't think he should have got anything. By a major and out of the game, sure. Yeah, cool. Yeah. I'm on board with that. Maybe a 1-game suspension or a fine, maybe. But beyond that, I thought it was a little really ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I could even buy a game or two because it's and the argument everybody's using is it's Wilson, he should know better. But so I could get on board with that side of it and that. But 7 games to me is for the kind of hit that we saw.
It's suggested the multiplier is 3. So if you put it that way, if you gave him 3 games, 1 times the multiplier of 3 to 3 games, I would have been like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But yeah, 7
was. Then
it asked the question, what was the game amount? Why didn't you go 9? Why didn't you go 6? Or did you just make an arbitrary decision? Let's go with half of 9 and 6.
Maybe they just went more like, all right, he's gonna sit for 2 weeks. They play 7 games. Maybe that's how they did it.
True. Yep, that could. I haven't looked at the numbers, but that's a good call. Could have been.
I only know that because he's my fantasy guy. So
true.
He's sitting there.
Is that actually true? That's how many games he played in like a 2-week span?
That's how much he plays in a 2-week span. Yeah.
Do you know if any of those games happen to be against Boston off the top of your head?
I do not know.
I wouldn't be surprised if they, if game 5 was against Boston, they gave him 6 or 7, so it's not against Boston.
Yeah.
I could see that, but then again, if you look at the schedule, I doubt it's within another week or 10 days that they play Boston again anyways with this year's situation, right?
It's unfortunate because I was watching the game and I was in a type fantasy match and I'm like, Wilson was kind of running around that period looking for trouble.
He was a little bit.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm bragging like he's running around crushing people.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. We also wanted to touch base on Connor Murphy?
I think it's Connor Murphy.
Connor Murphy's hit on. I can't pronounce the guy's name.
Forget his first name, but Cernak.
Aaron
something Tampa Cernak on Tampa Bay.
This is kind of that same scenario. Guys coming around the net with his head down, and Connor Murphy gets up high, but he's like you just talked about the chest. And in this scenario, 0 games. So to me, it's a little.
And many people said the Murphy hit was worse than the Wilson hit.
I personally thought it was worse.
I don't think either were horrendous, but I do think the Murphy one was slightly worse. The resulting injuries obviously is a different situation, but exactly. Murphy, I think you said it, that Murphy almost turned too much, and it was like he almost was like launching himself as a weapon and just being like, well, here I am. And if that's the case, where's the recklessness difference?
Yeah, totally agree, and that's where it kind of comes into what you're saying. What's the multiplier? You'd think at least a game on Murphy, and if they're kind of trying to keep it consistent. And
right.
I know I didn't go back and look myself. It's with that McKinnon hit that happened a week and a half ago. He was again in that same. He was leaning forward, and he missed a couple games. So I know that.
Actually, that's a good point. And there was no suspension, right?
I don't think so, but
anything?
Don't quote me on that because I haven't confirmed.
Yeah,
I know. So it's just kind of interesting.
But with the Cernak thing. Yeah. I just want to say with the Cernak thing, I could be wrong on this, but I do believe they were on the penalty kill, because I wasn't really paying attention at the beginning of the play, but something happened where you heard everyone be like, whoa! So I was kind of like, whoa, what's going on? And a guy was laying down. So I don't know if he pulled his feet out. He kind of just pushed them. If they ran into each other and they fell, but the puck wasn't there. So you could have called it anything, right? Like it was interference, whatever. But they didn't call it. So the other team was like, what the hell? That's a penalty. So then Cernak grabbed the puck and he skated up. So you have to be aware, The other team's pissed at you for just doing something you just did. You
Yeah.
skate down, you hold the puck, you hold the puck, you hold the puck, you go down around the net with your head down. What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't
Like,
know
you're
that
a
part.
target.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to say, is that, like, people were already like, I want to get this guy for what he just did. He could have hit the guy. I don't remember exactly what happened, but there was an incident where the other team was like, what the hell? You just did something to my guy. Now I want to hit you back. And he kept the puck all the way down the ice. It's like, again, what do you think is going to happen? You put the target on yourself, and then you're holding the puck.
Yeah.
You're a defenseman. Put the puck in, skate back to your defensive post. There's no need for you to be in there. You're looking for something. Because he's a physical guy, right?
Yeah.
He's looking for somebody to come punch him in the face and be like, all right, let's drop the gloves. Like, he's looking for something, but he found the wrong thing he was looking for. And why is that the hitter's problem? And I think that's why he didn't get a suspension, which is stupid, because what's the difference?
Yeah.
Tom Wilson, that's the only difference.
Tom Wilson factor. I guess, yeah. You get that bad rep around the league, it follows you around.
You see it with guys like Nazem Kadri and stuff, these guys who, you can maul them and they won't call a penalty just because, but I think drawing penalties is an art form, and it's a dying art form.
It is.
If it's a penalty, call it. Like,
exactly.
I don't know. All
right. The next thing on here was 3 stars, but do you want to talk about the goalies platoon thing, or did you have this?
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of. I had it in kind of the same bucket, just because I was just going to say that I've noticed a trend that it is easy to find at least one goalie a week, which is kind of strange that it's not, the same goalies playing all these games. Like, some of them are Vasilevsky, who's in there all the time, but a lot of them are guys that kind of are in platoon situations, or are prospects, or rookies, or rebounding veterans, so to speak. Like, it's just kind of interesting to me that the value we talk as the goalie going down, there's actually all these goalies popping up in terms of value, and it's not the names you probably would have put money on to start the season.
I find it happens every season that way, where as injuries start piling in, especially, you get a couple names that come out of nowhere, really, and present that.
Yeah, that's all I really wanted to say, is that I found it interesting, and I found it more. I found more awareness to it this year, whether it's because fantasy, whether because it's just there and I didn't notice it, whether because it is that much increased this year. I don't know, maybe a part of all of those. But I just find it interesting that, even moving forward, what are we going to see with goalies, and how is that goal situation going to be handled? But that being said, I think we should get into the 3 stars, because I think we both have some goalies.
All right, let's do it.
3 stars of the week.
I'll let you go first this time, because I've gone first last couple of weeks. So you go ahead.
All right, I just gotta pull mine open because I had the topics here. I kind of forgot I like my talking points. So for me, I like this guy a lot, and I've had him and dropped him multiple times in fantasy this season on both my teams. Never quite made it, and unfortunately, I didn't have him for this week. Adrian Kempe for the Los Angeles Kings, coming off 6 goals in his past 3 games. I'm giving him my 3rd star of the week. Falling down on the rankings a little bit because LA's been like 2-2 on the week, and I like to pick the guys that really help their team have a really good week. And LA, mediocre week, so couldn't not give him props. So one of the games was a hat trick. Kempe. Just lighting the lamp a little bit for LA here. 6 goals in 3 games. So he was my 3rd star of the week. So, you got something? Sorry.
Nope.
2nd star of the week for me, Thatcher Demko of the Vancouver Canucks. Really, I talked about this before on a podcast, how he's stolen the net in Vancouver, and it's pretty clear now. He's had the 5 straight starts for Vancouver. Discounting last night where he finally got overloaded, letting 5 goals against Montreal on 45 shots still, so almost still a 900 save percentage. Before that, the 4 games before that, he won all 4 for the Canucks, averaging over 30 saves per game. Every game he had over 30 saves. And he had one shutout against Winnipeg, which is a pretty decent team offensively. So Vancouver's technically still alive, and a big part of it is to do with him in the past week. So giving it to Thatcher Demko. And for my first star of the week, I got Jordan Stahl. I think second time he's hit my 3 stars this season. Just having an incredible season for Carolina. Underrated player for them. Huge. Carolina themselves have won 6 games in a row, coming into tonight where they play Nashville. Jordan Stahl, over the past week, 7 points, 4 goals, 2 of them game-winning goals. So just been a complete monster for them. He hits, he shoots, he's probably a huge leader. I've always been a fan of the guy from his time in Pittsburgh and everything. So that's who I got as my number 1.
That's a good pick. Yeah, I think he might be having his best season, and he's one of those guys that's just like, he doesn't excel amazingly at one particular thing, but he's just so good at everything. And he's a big boy that, like, somebody starts pushing the wrong way, he'll fight him too. I don't know. He's a good guy, and I think that Carolina is going to be scary because I think they're the second or third most offensive team in the NHL, and they don't even have Teravainen, which, I mean, I don't think he's that amazing, but still, it's a good top 6 piece that you haven't had all year. But yeah, that's. Did you want to touch on your honorable mention as well?
And my honorable mention. I say this every week. I want to get a defenseman in there. I think this was the best time to have a case for a defenseman. Aaron Ekblad had a pretty good week. 3 goals, 4 assists, 1 game-winning goal. I've been watching quite a bit of Florida. He's been lethal on that power play for them. Him shooting from the point, Hornquist out front, Barkov and Huberdeau setting everyone up. Like, that power play is definitely probably I would rate the best in the league.
It's wicked.
It is pretty wicked. But yeah, I want to give it to him. I almost put him on a 3-star, but I don't know. Bias came into play, and I had to give it to Kempe. So
yeah, fair enough.
So I'll let you take it away with.
So I had. I had a tough time on this a little bit just because I had a little bit of recency bias kick in with my first star. But I had a bit of a tough time with goalies because there was 2 of them that were standing out to me as usual. So I'll start with my third star, though. I went with Chris Kreider. And the reason I went with Chris Kreider is because Vancouver, New York Rangers are finally starting to turn it on a little bit. And obviously with Panarin being out, Chris Kreider really kind of stepped up. I believe he has 3 hat tricks, if not 2, and a 2-goal game in the last 10 games. He's just been on fire. I know that as well because he's been on Nick's fantasy team, so he's been killing me there as well. But he's kind of been keeping New York Rangers alive while Panarin's been out. So I think he hasn't been racking up the points, but he has been helping obviously lead as he does. So I thought he was deserving of the third star of the week.
I like it.
The debate that I came into here was the second star. I actually originally had my first star at number 3 when then I had to move him up, which I'll obviously get to in a second. But the 2 goalies I debated between were Kaapo Kähkönen from Minnesota and Carey Price from Montreal. And it's funny because I do believe on the last podcast, it might have been in the fantasy one, I said to keep your eyes on Price.
Yep.
Or I had mentioned that Price had been dropped in my other pool. And I had actually picked him up. And then I had dropped him because I wanted to go with a 2-goalie system. But I was like, oh, he's going through Vancouver. He always lights it up when he goes to Vancouver. And he's 2-0 against them. And I believe he had like a .960 save percentage through those 2 games. And he went 2-0. So actually 3 games he played and he went 2-0. So one was, I think, a shootout loss or an overtime loss. But I think that game was 2-1 or 3-2. So low scoring as well. So he was my honorable mention.
Yep.
And I actually went with Kaapo Kähkönen as my second star. He's been 3-0 in his last starts. 2 of those have been against Vegas. Say what you will. Vegas obviously has been missing some guys and whatnot. Yeah. But they're still a hell of a team. They've got some depth, so they're still no weak team to scoff at anyways. And one of them was a shutout. Sorry. So yeah, I gave second star to Kähkönen.
That's the second star of our second time in the 3 stars for him as well.
Is it?
Yeah.
Where else did he show up?
I gave it to him one week where he won 4 in a row. It's been money.
That's true. Yeah, might creep into the prospect rookie of the year talk.
That's a good point too. Yeah, I have
If
a
he
rookie
keeps putting
card
these,
of him.
do you?
Got it last year. Yeah.
There you go.
You know me.
He might be better than Pedersen.
Oh yeah. All right, let's go.
And to my first star, I went again with the recency bias. I went with Leon Draisaitl, my boy. This is the second time he's got first star from me. Obviously, or last time he got it for a 6-assist game. This time he's getting it for a 5-point game. He had a hat trick and 2 assists. But obviously, a little recency bias doesn't hurt with that just being, I think, yesterday or the day before.
Yeah. Both those games against Ottawa, though, so I didn't give them too much.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
It doesn't. You're right. But yeah.
Ottawa's also beating other teams and stuff like that.
I hear you. It's been
so yeah.
Anytime you can put up 5 points in a game, like I can't. It's the NHL after all.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess that wraps up our 3 stars of the week.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. What do we got left? We're gonna talk about standings. We're gonna do that shortly. What about I guess the ESPN? ESPN signs a huge TV deal.
No, actually, it was that, but it was the divisions. The NHL just came out today saying they will go back to traditional divisions next year.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's good.
So this season breakdown of our standings will just be a 1-year thing. So we will be going back to normal-ish, but they do want to keep some sort of Canadian mini-series type things going on.
Yeah, by the sounds of it, they are very happy with the way these 2-game, 3-game sets are going, and that is something that they're definitely going to consider going forward. I feel like I heard this today that the biggest thing Bettman had against it in general with the 2-game sets was that like most teams only play a team twice on a season. So like Vancouver against Pittsburgh, for instance, they're only matching up twice. So like, wait, that doesn't make, my argument's not going to make sense in that one. But like, just say Crosby came to Vancouver twice, the fan would have 2 separate opportunities to watch Crosby, whereas if he's hurt for one of them, okay,
he's going to miss both.
Yeah, in this case, he'll miss both. So if someone's buying tickets specifically to see Crosby, they're going to miss both. That's the downside, but I don't know. You're never going to be able to predict injuries in that. So I think it's something that...
Or that he doesn't have the flu. You don't want to go see the goalie play that day and he has the flu and he doesn't play.
Exactly. So
there's always...
I think
you can't.
It seems like it's going to be a staple in schedules from here to come, which is going to help players with travel. It's going to help teams with costs. It's going to... I know it's fun. These 2 games, I like it.
I think that they should try to keep the like the heavy schedule within division. It's nice to see every team, and in terms of marketing, you definitely want to do that. But is it really relevant to play Anaheim twice, or who's another team in a different division that Minnesota maybe that's the only time you'll never face them in the playoffs probably because those teams would never probably make it to the Cup final. But like, does it really matter to play them 3 or 4 times? Play them once or twice, and who cares who's in whatever lineup?
A home game against every team makes sense to me. Just so you can say that Matthews showed up to your hometown and you had a chance.
Or he would have been there.
Yeah. His team, like, I don't know, like you get little kids, like even though they're living in California, they might love the Leafs because of Matthews and then they still want to see their blue team show up, So I don't know.
Exactly.
I still think that's continue, but yeah.
But then you want to come back to the standings there. What was the other thing you're going to say there? Just about the TV deal?
Yeah, the ESPN signed the big TV year deal. I didn't actually know the numbers of it. I just knew it happened. I didn't read super much into it. Part of me is curious if, since ESPN is owned by Disney, will the NHL be streamed on Disney Plus? Come on, like you get a subscription, you get all the free NHL. That'd be pretty awesome. I know.
That leads me to a further question of during, you know how they like to do all these like mini series on sports and stuff, and how they're releasing different ones for different things. What if Disney started having a crew that followed all teams around, or all, and you had an NHL COVID experience, what it was like for every team, and what like I'd watch a 10-part series on what it was like for all the teams this year to
No,
go
for
through this
sure. And
experience. I watched
I
that.
know I was listening to something today on business, how Disney, I forget the exact number. I think it's 100 million subscribers. They reached it after, like, just recently, and Disney's been Plus has been around for what, a year now. It took Netflix 12 years to hit that number. So just the amount of growth of this brand and all that behind it, I think it's a big boost for the NHL. It could be very good. I think being partnered with a company like Disney and TV, and they know how to produce, they know how to make content, they know how to do that, and they have the opportunity here to get a little bit of young eyes watching on it with Disney. I know NFL specifically this past season, they were doing, I don't know if you saw this, you probably didn't, they had a deal with Nickelodeon where they put some games on, but they made it kind of crazy for like it was on a kids Nickelodeon channel, so like when a touchdown happened, like all this spark, like all this color stuff was going off and making it very like visually entertaining for kids. So I'm wondering if there's something like that in the works for the NHL here too. Be kind of interesting.
Well, like the other thing I was going to say is that like you take it another step further, like Disneyland and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, are there opportunities to have maybe a hockey character, or is there a way to put the like Mickey Mouse and whatever into hockey and kind of, in a sense, feed children from, you know, cartoon time to, you know, maybe I like sports, and then into maybe different things like that. Like it does have a lot of unique opportunities that could be interesting.
And I know a new Mighty Ducks is coming, so
yes,
so it's all coming together here. It's gonna be sweet.
Jam, different sport, but I believe that's Disney. I believe maybe.
I assume so, and it has LeBron, so that's gonna be sick.
Yeah. So I mean, it's been a while since. I mean, I think it's gonna be better for people our age who have the nostalgia also on top of it. I don't know it's going to be as much of a hit to people who never saw or never cared about the old ones and are like, eh. You know what I mean?
Yeah, except if the kids that love LeBron are going to love it. I think the little kids are going to, it's attacking us or the generation that are really starting to have kids right now, right? So we're going to bring our kids to the, for sure.
Well, that's like, I believe, I could have these titles wrong, but Adam Sandler's doing a second to Happy Gilmore and to Billy Madison.
Oh, no.
So, like, for me, that's, I don't know, Sandler's silly, but, like, he's entertaining. Like, I like those movies. I've seen them a bazillion times.
I like Sandler, too.
I watched a second version of them easily. So, I don't know. But, I just was going to say with the a couple teases I just wanted to touch on is the trade deadline. I'd really like to, in the next show or two, week or two, go over some trade talk, maybe predictions if you're down. Kind of speculation, stuff like that. Be a bit of theory craft show, but I think it could be interesting.
I think we're due for a theory craft show soon. It's been a little while, and I know the fans out there love the theory craft that we throw around from time to time. So.
And I know a lot of people are kind of throwing expansion around right now, and I'm kind of just like I've put a wall up for myself. I pretty much won't talk about it yet, just because there's so many variables. But once the trade deadline is done, I think at that point there's enough variables to kind of speculate what moves might be done, and then speculate beyond that one last hurdle who's actually going to be left. Because like once you break down teams and you're like, clearly they've got these, I'll just say 3 forwards, and they can only pick one of them. They're not just going to wait and go through expansion, just be like, oh, pick one, and then carry on. They're going to do their work and be like, hey, could I get a third? Could I get a first? Could I get picks? Like if I could get a second and third, or just let them be taken, you're going to trade for the picks. So like with expansion, once trades are done through now, you're going to be able to kind of draw the lines, connect the dots between certain things.
Yeah.
And then you can move past that and actually talk about expansion, which that's where I'm excited for. And that's where I'll start getting into expansion. But anyone who tries to really get into expansion talk right now, it's way too early. There's too
I
many
agree.
things.
It is. And there's a lot of other stuff on the plates right now
Yeah.
So
For sure.
plus you need something to talk about in the off season or like right
Exactly.
when the playoffs are over kind of thing. I understand.
Not really. It's going to be bang, bang, bang.
Oh yeah, we're gonna be firing these podcasts. We're gonna be at 100 before we know it, man. We're episode 38 right now.
I want to say the playoffs are supposed to end on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday.
Mm-hmm.
The following Friday is the entry draft, or is supposed to be the entry draft. The following Friday after that is supposed to be expansion, and the following Friday after that is supposed to be free agency. Wow. So it's just bang, 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 bang.
We're gonna be busy. Well, fantasy podcast can be over. We might have to start doing 2 podcasts a week.
Yeah, just on other stuff going on potentially. Do like an expansion show or do like a entry draft show, but I'm starting to think the draft's not going to happen this year. But that's again a different topic.
Oh yeah, did we want to touch on that? I don't think we did touch about the proposed changes that are going through on the draft.
Oh, on the draft?
Yeah. So like they're basically saying that you can't move up 10. Like the lotto is going to still exist. You can't move up 10 spots. You can't win top 2 picks, is it, within 6 years twice or more than twice? And then I'm missing another. If you're one of the worst teams, you can't drop more than 2 spots or something like that too. That's part of it. I don't know if I'm missing, but I don't know. I know you're not too happy. You think it's a mistake that they're making here. I personally think.
Honestly, you know what it is? It's like, here's a piece of paper and here is a pen. Can you draw a shape for me? I do it like this. And I'm like, okay, what shape did you draw for me? A circle, a square? No, I drew a tetrahedron. And it's like, okay, thanks for being so complex about things. I asked you for a simple freaking shape. Like, that's the NHL. Like, that's why I don't like it. Like, why you've made things more complex and diluted just for, Chris Johnson was talking about it even on the Steve Dangle podcast. And like, he said that he doesn't see every draft remaining the same for the next few years. He thinks every single year there's going to be adaptations or alterations. So like, if you're going to do that, why not base it on how bad teams actually are? And that's what I've said to you is like, do it on winning percentage in a sense. Like if you took last year's Detroit Red Wings, they were substantially worse than like all these other teams. So if the standard percentage is 33%, give them a 36% odd so that they have that slightly higher. Like if there's 5 teams who have 1 point difference between all of them for last place, they should all be almost the same, but then the 6, 7, 8 should have that more minimal chance. Like the pockets of
it makes sense. Like I can see the issue. I do like they kind of made the one rule because of what happened to Detroit. They were so bad and they kind of got screwed. That in the new scenario they wouldn't have dropped anywhere lower than 3rd. But yeah, I hear you. It is getting a little too complicated. Like keep it simple, stupid is kind of like what you're supposed to do in these kind of things, right? Just try. It makes it easier for fans to follow along, and it makes it easier for new fans to follow along. And you're not.
The one thing I will say though is that I do like how they're prohibiting teams from being able to basically thrive only hitting twice. Like I know I've said this before with the Oilers, like if you ignore their first round picks or at least their first rounds in the top 10 over the last 8 years, they have like 4 players who have played 150 games in the NHL. It might have been 7 players, but even 7 players over 7 drafts outside your first round have ever played more than 2 seasons in the NHL. That's horrendous. So like if you limited them at that time to only having 2, they wouldn't have had these other teams. And they would have said, we need an owner in there. We need a GM in there. We need these guys in there to make you legit and not ruin 5 years or like, unfortunately, in this case, a Buffalo. Like, they haven't got the picks, but like a long window like this can ruin a lot of careers. So like, it's not fair to those players either. So.
Makes sense. All right, let's talk about this divisions.
Let's do it.
It's time. halfway through the season. I think some teams have over the halfway mark. Some teams are right on it. Some are slightly short. But it's time. We've been putting it off a couple weeks now. It's time. So let's kick things off with we'll start with the East. I'll start, I guess, on this one.
Okay.
To my surprise, Buffalo is in my basement. Beginning of the year, I thought they'd be a contender for a playoff spot. I had them in the top 12 in the league. That's how crazy I must have been. I must have been drinking some Jesse Kool-Aid or something. But,
wow, you talked to Jesse too much in the offseason.
Well, like on paper, they seem like a legit team that could be taken a step forward, right? They got Dahlin in his second year. They had Eichel. I had a lot of faith in Ullmark, and he actually was pretty good. But I have them in the basement now. Like, they're suffering injuries. Eichel's now out of state for like a second opinion on some injury. And
trading off,
and Hall's having a terrible season, and their defense is just another like on their backup goalie who's like Swiss cheese. So like, I even put them behind the Devils. The Devils, I at least like winning more often, so I have them in second. And
they score more.
They score more. They're younger talent. I actually watch a fair amount of Devils compared to the average person, and look at what time it is. It's 5:05, and Milo is getting out of his chair and starting to burp. So I apologize. It's just that time of for that. But Devils, I've been watching a little bit of them. I really like Jack Hughes. I think he's underrated right now, and he's gonna come out and he's gonna be a star for that team. I like the way he plays. It's fun watching him. He's fast. He shoots. He has dangles. He's one to watch for in the coming years for sure. And then I have the Rangers next, and I don't have them making the playoffs. Shesterkin's hurt right now. Georgiev cannot hold it down for them without him. They're really missing him. Their defense is hurt this season. Then I go up to Philadelphia as my team that's going to be missing. This is my current predictions. I have Pittsburgh and Philly kind of both in middling teams, but I give the edge to Pittsburgh at this point with Philly just dealing with so much injuries. At the beginning of the season, I counted Boston out of this league. Had them as a bottom 5 team. I guess I just didn't respect the Boston, the Bruins, the culture, whatever they have. It still seems to be working for them, and now the Bruins are gonna Bruin, especially. So like, I have them in third now. I have them even as like I'll put up the tier list for us too. Like as I'm talking about, like mine will be popped up now. It's probably people aren't gonna see it, but I have them third, and they're in my top 12. And then this is gonna be crazy. I'm just gonna do it. I am drinking the New York Islanders Kool-Aid. I am a believer. They've given me no reason not to now. I know we've been hating on them for like a year and a half, like ever since dating back to that last season, calling them the Coyotes of the East. But they're goaltenders. Barry Trotz, he just seems to have gotten the team to do what they need to do, and they're on fire right now too. I think they've won 8 in a row or something crazy. So I have them literally in top 6 in the league now, and I think they deserve it at this point. I can't argue against it anymore.
See, Islanders are like when you go to McDonald's and order a meal and get a pie afterwards, and you're like, the pie's fine. Like, nobody goes to McDonald's for pie.
Yeah.
So, like, that's the Islanders for me. So it's just kind of like, they're fine. I don't think they're bad. I'm not trying to disrespect them when I put them a little bit lower, but I just feel like there's other teams who are going to click together and, get healthy or whatever that are just that much, at least a little bit better, but if not much better.
I just can't
I
find
definitely think they're a playoff team, but I just don't
know. Like,
them.
if I look at them, even when I have Washington as number 1, just to remain consistent as to earlier in the season, I don't have much to lower them. But if I look at Island, like every other team has like a weakness, like where they're like by far not good. The Islanders are pretty solid everywhere. They have 2 solid goalies. I love their defense. I do. Like, they're all right. Like, they have Leddy, they have Pullock, they got Green, like they're
They're younger though.
Green's a veteran.
The thing that I look at though, yeah, but they're going to need depth. Like, I don't think that all these guys are going to be healthy and producing all year. Like, I think that if you get down one or two more on the depth chart, I think that that's where it's going to hurt them from being elite.
The reason I don't think, like, I don't know what it is, but Barry Trotz just has the style with his teams that breed good defense. So I don't know. As long as the system,
it's low danger.
Yeah, it's the system, right?
Low danger system.
Product of the system. Yeah. So does it take solid, amazing star defensemen to play in that kind of system? I don't think so. So that's where I'm at.
And in fact, I think star players wouldn't excel similar to a Babcock or similar to a Tortorella, where it's like, you got to do the dirty work. But if you're almost too good for that, they don't know how to handle those players. They don't know how to tell somebody like, yeah, maybe you are too good, but I still want you to block a shot with your wrist or something like that, right? So I don't know. But I mean, a lot of the divisions that you list, or a lot of the order that you listed off, I somewhat agree, at least in terms of like the teams that are in the playoffs, except I will debate you on the whole Pittsburgh thing. I mean, I know that we have Washington both at the top, and I think that it is a safe debate, at least, to put Boston at number 2. I also think Boston's going to, I think I said this before as well, I think Boston's going to acquire somebody at the deadline. Okay. I think they're going to add a defenseman and probably another something, probably depth player with size. But like, let's say, for example, an Eric Stahl. I could see them getting an Eric Stahl and an Ekholm from Nashville.
Yeah, that could be big. And they always seem to do something at the deadline.
Always. And that's what I'm expecting. And I think that Washington, after the whole COVID thing with the 4 Russians, after them missing time, Ovi missing time, the suspension, Chara being there, I think that once everything gets back to norm and Wilson's done his suspension and hopefully everything's healthy by then, I think you're going to see Washington really, go on a 10-game winning streak or something big. Like, I think they're destined to go on a bit of a run in the next few games here. I'm expecting big things from them. But the Philly-Pittsburgh debate is really what we have in terms of our rankings.
Yeah.
I know you're a bit of a Pittsburgh guy, but like, what do you think comes down to the difference here, and how many points do you think separate Philly and Pittsburgh?
I think Pittsburgh. I don't think it's close, to be honest. I think Pittsburgh.
Really? Okay.
I think Pittsburgh's a much stronger team. Philly's been disappointing this season. Mind you, they've had injury problems, especially on the back end. But their goalies have just, like, Hart has had an awful season. He's not performing up to anything. Like, it's at this point, they're almost relying on Brian Elliott with the majority of the starts. And me saying that makes
pretty
me a little
much,
sick.
which isn't good.
Yeah, it makes me a little
right.
sick. And I know. We'll touch on it again as always, but you're not a Jari fan, and I'm a little bit more of a Jari fan than you.
Sorry, breaking news: St. Louis extends Jordan Binnington to a 6-year, $36 million deal.
Ugh. Okay, so they're not gonna be getting Rask.
There you go. That sucks for me. Poop. But anyways.
So yeah,
continue with what you're saying.
I'm a little bit more of a Jari fan than you. I just think they're better. Like, they have the star power. It kind of goes back to what I said.
Your pup doesn't like Jari. He doesn't agree with what you're saying.
It just goes back to what I talked about before with Chicago. Is they have the Crosby factor, they have the Malkin factor, they have Letang. Like, they have the better solid players than Philly. They have the experience. I just think they're the better team.
So if you were the GM of both teams, I know that's not possible, but let's say you could do that, and you could add one chip at the deadline and then ride that team for your chances to make the playoffs. What chip is it each team? Like, what weakness, I guess, is what I'm asking.
I think Pittsburgh probably needs just another defenseman, maybe a backup goalie. Or even a starter, but like those are going to be tough, right? Jari's good in my eyes, but he's not been there before. He's not done it, so it's a big risk. Yeah. So that's really
maybe a Kempe.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, if he comes back and is okay. Yeah, But for Philly, I don't know.
Interesting.
Like they, in my eyes, Philly needs everything right now. They don't.
Yeah.
They're kind of.
With Hart not playing, like, you can't get a goalie, right?
Mhm.
So like you're screwed there. Yeah, I don't know what you do with Philly.
Yeah. So
Maybe you add defense to try and make your goalie's lives easier. Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. Like I just think Philly. Like it's. They had an amazing year last year. They had a good run. It's just they did rely on Hart a ton, and when he's not performing, the team's falling apart. And in my eyes, Pittsburgh just has Pittsburgh I think has a little bit easier schedule down the stretch too. They haven't played the bottom teams as much.
Mm-hmm. I see Philly doing a big trade. There's something that needs to give, in my opinion, in Philly, and one of those pieces for sure is Nolan Patrick. And
Yeah.
I think I think potentially, like, I've heard nothing but Johnny Gaudreau to Philly rumors for the longest time. So I've always just wondered, up just because he's from the area, he grew up a Flyers fan.
Okay.
So I was just curious, like, what I always do. Hey, if this trade were to actually happen, what would the other pieces look like? And it's almost like one, if not both, of JVR and Giroux would have to go back to Calgary. So
Yeah,
then you're looking at
that
that.
doesn't make sense.
Like,
though.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think Philly needs to move, and I think that the problem with Philly is they had those two big defensemen that they had big hopes for. Neither really turned out. I think it's time for them to pull in that defenseman, or I think they could miss the boat here. I think they really need that guy like Ekholm or somebody like that to come in.
Yeah. So that's my overall take on the division. I think the top four are pretty much locked up in my eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that I think Philly is underperforming. I really think that they're due for Hart. For the last 2 years, Hart has done this twice, where he hasn't had a great start, and then he goes on this 20-game stretch where he only loses like 3 games and he has like 3 shutouts and is just an all-world insane goalie. Like, I remember saying multiple times to people that, like, chill on Hart. He's not that amazing, but yes, he's pretty solid. So it's just kind of like, I'm expecting a little heater for him, and that's all Philly needs is an 8-game heater by him, something that like Kakanen's doing or something like these other
goalies are
doing.
It's a short season though. They got to get on it before it's too late.
That's true. That's the problem. That's always going to be the problem.
All right.
So let's go to the Central.
Yeah, you lead us off on this one because I went on a huge rant on that last one. You go.
That's all good. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of look and see, because I can see both of your charts. I don't know. Is that how you're going to put them up? On the screen?
Well, I'll put my charts at the top and your charts at the bottom. I'll probably have them all up at once, or maybe.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe just the division we're on, but I'll do something like that.
Yeah, maybe do the divisions. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I mean, obviously, at the bottom we both have Detroit. I think that's easy. I don't think we need to really, divulge much more on that. The next topic of conversation, I think, is the middle part. I mean, Columbus, Dallas, Nashville. I think for the most part, you could put them in a blender. I'm still going to give the benefit of the doubt myself to Dallas. They've got Bishop and Seguin coming back. I know it's pushing it. I know that runway is getting, shorter. But I still think Dallas is one of those teams in the last 15 games, they could go, 11-2 and whatever, right? Like they could.
My biggest concern with Dallas is just the amount of games they have. They have the most amount of games left out of anyone.
But that's a good thing, because they have the most amount of games left with health, assuming no one else gets hurt.
Yeah, it could be. It could also, it can also lead to injuries and stuff too. And
or being tired come playoff time.
Or if Bishop or Seguin are slow ramping back into it, it's like we talked about, the runway's short.
Yeah. Or could cause a little, like, what we talked about when Tarasenko came back, when I said, like, at the guys at the top could really disrupt the chain of command, so to speak. So, you get a starting goalie and your top right winger back, or top center, however you look at it. It could disrupt them for a couple of games, so that could really throw that whole idea out of whack. Plus, for me, I don't know if I believe in Chicago. That's the other part for me. I think Chicago's due for a little bit of a cold streak. I could see a situation where Kane, gets 4 points in the next 6 games, which is still good, but not godlike like he has been.
I do feel like they've been getting scoring from all over, though, too. Like,
they have scoring.
Yeah.
I just don't love their goalies. Like, Lankinen's solid. Subban's been friggin' ridiculous, but I feel like they're due
They're
for a
definitely
little
they're
bit of a
definitely
collapse.
performing above expectation at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that if that crosses with Dallas coming up at the right time
Mm-hmm.
with the right amount of games left, I think that's the only team to steal their spot. And I think the top three are locked in. I mean, I think we're both convinced of that. Just
Mm-hmm.
a matter of who's 2 and who's 3 at this point, with us having Tampa 1 and
Yeah.
then dispute between Carolina and Florida for 2-3.
Yeah, and really it could go either way. They're both very
Mhm.
good teams, and it's gonna be at this point they're pretty much on a collision course for a playoff series, which is pretty
Yeah.
exciting. I think that could be a pretty good series.
If you had Tampa Bay or Carolina, Florida, uh, if you could put money on the 2 teams or the 1 team to win the division, what would you take?
I'm gonna take Tampa. I
Yeah.
know at the beginning of
I
this
think it's going to be close.
Vasilevsky is just the difference maker for sure.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And the fact he'll be in almost every game, that's also the difference maker. He ain't platooning like
Not
a
in
lot of other
playoffs.
goalies.
Yeah, no. Come
No,
playoff time,
no.
it's him
True.
and Florida's goalie question mark and controversy, if you want to call that still. And then Carolina again.
Oh, Bobrovsky's heating up.
He is.
I wouldn't be surprised. He might make an appearance in the 3 stars in the next couple of
Oh,
weeks.
get out of
Maybe.
here. You're drunk. He's gonna let in 6.
Probably right. Let in 6 and still win somehow.
That's how it goes. But I don't know. It's like this one, top 3 are cemented. I think Tampa is close for first, but I think Tampa will get there pretty handily. But I don't know. Second could go either way for me.
I think did I pick Carolina or did I pick Florida? I picked Carolina. I know I was hot on Florida from the start, and I always kind of said they were going to be second. I'm not necessarily moving off of that. I feel like Carolina had that run a couple years ago, and then they kind of fell off and kind of plateaued a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think they understand that, like, if they catch the right timing, what's stopping them from going to the cup final? And I think that they are looking at that as a smaller franchise and saying, like, hey, when we go on a run, we tend to go on a run.
Yep, it's true.
Maybe we go on a run here.
I just want to point out, or never mind. I'm looking at the wrong thing.
Okay.
Never
But
mind.
I also know I mentioned the whole Nedeljkovic thing with Carolina, and how I said I don't really believe. I think Mrazek and Reimer are both good, tandem backup guys, guys playing 40% or less kind of stuff. But I don't think they really have that legit starter. I know they've always been super high on Nedeljkovic, and he's been playing really well. I wouldn't be surprised if they went after a guy like Kemper, or something like that. Like that's the trade piece I'm most intrigued on. I think he's the biggest inch piece.
Oh, you think he's going for sure?
Kemper, I'm if he doesn't, Arizona's just being Arizona. And I mean, I guess it is what it is.
He is
but
injured
like
right now, though. Like it does hurt his. But I know what you mean. The one thing I would say about Carolina and their goalies is, I feel like they're very similar to Colorado in the way they play. Like they don't need the amazing goalie in the back. So, like Grubauer's getting it done for Colorado, and we all know he's not like your grade A top goalie in the league kind of goalie. He's just, well, we'll get to that in the next division here. I don't know.
So I think that's all we got to really talk about on the Central.
Yeah. All right.
The Discover division.
The Discover division. All right. Let's go on to the West here. My home division.
Yeah.
I have to. Okay, so we're a little bit different. You have Arizona in the very bottom, and I'm leaning to agree with you after watching them play last night. They were atrocious, atrociously bad. Somehow got out of that game with a point. It blows my mind, but we both kind of agree that Anaheim is a bottom 5 team in the league. Don't think there's too much to talk about with them. They're just in that rebuilding phase, and I think that I think they're handling it the right way. The team's playing good. Their young guys is kind of like the Ottawa of of the West.
That's a good call. Yep.
This is where we're a little bit different. You have the Sharks as a bottom 10, or I just consider them bottom 5, and it's because they got nothing really good going for them. They're in cap hell. They got 2 goalies that are letting in goals more than they save. Really, they don't have a forward. They have the Evander Kane problem now. They don't have a forward that really. Burns and Carlson are not what they're paying. Like, it's just a mess in San Jose, so I put them down there.
I just picked them a little higher just because I think that there's going to be a switch at some point in San Jose where it moves from what are we doing to survival mode to guys being like, screw you, I'm playing for me now.
Okay.
And it will be like, if it's at the cost of you, I want my career to continue. So like, I think that there's going to be a bit more unselfish or a bit more like selfishness like that, which could spark the right competition, even though it might not be good for the team, like for next year move, but it might be good for the 4 or 5 pieces that you need to kickstart again, if that makes any sense. And whilst the Anaheim can't really score and they kind of just don't get many points, and while Arizona trades off and just gets worse and worse and worse, I think that the Sharks will kind of just stay about the same, maybe get a little bit better while the other ones plummet. So that's more so why I picked the Sharks at 3.
Okay. I had Arizona, like, I have them in the 3rd bottom, but, like, if those things happen, like, they sell off, and after watching them last night where they had no shots for 25 minutes, that was rough.
Phil Kessel hasn't had a shot in over 5 games.
What? I did not know that.
I don't know if that's true, but they said that on TSN today. They said that he hasn't had a shot in over 5 games.
Well, they do say 80% of stats are made up, so I don't know if they made that one up or it falls into the 20%.
Yeah, I don't know, but still, like Phil Kessel from going from where he was to not shooting in even 2 games in a row. That's
crazy.
Yeah. So.
All right. I guess we'll look at the top 2 here. Where we have the exact same. Both thinking Vegas comes first, St. Louis in second. However, I put this in before today, finding out that Fleury's gonna be on the COVID list for the next potentially week or 2, right?
Back, who cares?
Yeah, I don't know. Vegas has struggled the past couple games, but maybe it's just that time of the season. They did run into a red hot Kakkonen that we've talked about already. So I do have a little bit of concerns in it. I wouldn't be surprised if St. Louis does hop over Vegas at some point here.
Yeah, they look good. They got Tarasenko back a little earlier than planned. If they stay healthy, they got Krug, they got Parayko.
They have they're a deep team. They have if Bennington continues to play like a Bennington has as the past couple of years, then definitely could see it. I guess the biggest note for me is that I don't have Colorado in 3rd right now. So as a surprise, there's something's not clicking in Colorado right now. I can't really say they're not scoring the way they have in the past. I don't know what they have to do to get out of it. Their defensemen, they don't have Makar. He's a huge part of that offense. He's on IR. I don't think they have a timetable when he'll be back. So I do have concerns. Specifically now that I have 3 fantasy players on Colorado, I watch them a lot more. They give up a lot of breakaways. And that worries me, especially how Grubauer is he's not the best goalie. Yeah. So like you can't expect any goalie to be an amazing breakaway goalie. That's not really what you hire them for. Yeah. But getting screened, point shots have been kind of concerning for him too. So I have a lot more confidence in Minnesota's goalies and their defense than Colorado at this point. And I think it's just like a mojo thing. Colorado doesn't seem to have mojo, whereas Minnesota seems to have mojo. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's basically what the difference I have here.
See, I think Colorado is just clearly a better team. I do agree that something's off. I got to give them the benefit of the doubt that it's going to click and they'll figure it out. Especially with McKinnon there, and there's too much talent for them not to get it figured out.
Look like a god by being right. That's pretty much
it. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But for me, I did also have Minnesota in the playoffs. But for me, I actually looked at Minnesota and LA Kings. like I looked at them as the battle pick, so to speak. Like I had Colorado easily in as the top 3, even though they're clearly the number 3. But for 4 or 5, I had LA and Minnesota. And that's where I got into like looking at the goalies and the defense and the depth, the power play, stuff like that. And I just had to go with Mini, gut feel. But like you said, the mojo, that was what triggered my gut feel, was just how they're grooving right now.
And this just like last night, the Kings, they're kind of running without goalies right now. Quick and Pedersen both out for at least the next week. Quick potentially longer, so some concerns.
Who's playing for them, do you know?
It was that Groslick guy played last night.
Oh, okay.
I forget.
Sorry, Grosnick,
yeah. So he played for them last night. He had a good game, so they won. So what more can you ask for from your number 3? But yeah, I'm with you though. The Kings could potentially, like I think I said this before, a couple weeks ago. I wouldn't be surprised if the Kings and the Wild both made it and one of those teams fell out. At this point, I would lean towards Colorado. When I said it at the time, I thought it might have been St. Louis, but now I wouldn't be surprised. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if both those teams meet. It's a 5-horse race. I know we talked about it at the beginning of this season, how 3 teams were a lock to get in. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think there's 5 teams trying to get in.
How many games are left?
About half the season.
20
so
something?
Like 56, so it's like what?
24?
28?
Oh, 28, okay.
About 28, so like, it's a lot. And you're going to be playing every one of the teams ahead of you. Like, you're going to have 2 or 3 against each team. If you sweep the team ahead of you,
there's a lot of runway left.
Yep.
Yeah. There's a lot of runway left because, like you just said, that you're playing all the teams, right? So every game's a 3-point game. If 3 games go to overtime, even if you win them all, you only gain 3 points.
I think it'd be important to look at, definitely in the West here, the remaining schedule. Like, there's going to be 1 or 2 of those teams in the hunt that play the bottom 3 more than the rest. So you would think they would have a little bit of advantage. And part of me thinks that Colorado does have that advantage just because I don't really think they've played a lot against the bottom, at least the Sharks.
I think they've already cleared like almost all of their Arizona games.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't think they've played Anaheim.
I was more thinking, about the Sharks and Anaheim was what I was thinking about. I know Vegas.
But you never know. I mean, a good game by Gibson or the Sharks just remember how to play as a team for a day. But who knows?
Yep. All right.
Is it time?
Time for our northern friends.
Okay, I think this is probably going to be the easiest one, I think.
Yeah?
You want me to take it on?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think obviously, Ottawa, clearly the bottom team. I don't think that's much of a dispute. I think we're both on the same page for Vancouver as well. I know you were hot on them early, and I think if we went back to our first podcast, I think I said something along the lines of like, I'm kind of buying in, but I don't know how confident I am buying.
Yeah, and then there's me. I'm always drinking this Kool-Aid. It's the Vancouver Canucks Kool-Aid. It gets to me.
Because Markstrom's on there.
Well, I think at the beginning too, like I have them all ranked as yellow. Like really, I think I remember saying like I couldn't put my finger on how these 5 teams would line up. And the only thing that's different now for me is that Vancouver's clearly a tier behind these other teams. They've taken a step back. They're
a tier above Ottawa, but a tier below everyone else.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is the only division we are exactly the same on in terms of tiering.
Yeah.
So then, obviously, we both have Toronto at the top of the league. But then I think, obviously, the debate comes in. I guess we both had Calgary as the third last team, which I think mostly is just because they're running out of time.
Yeah.
Make up what's lost now.
It's funny because me and my Calgary curse. I love bringing this up. Beginning of the season, I had them in the 4th playoff spot. So now they're out of it, and I'm like, all right, they're not going to make the playoffs. So just watch.
Yeah.
I'm helping the Calgary fans out. They're about to go on a run.
Give us a forecast. What's going to happen the next 2 weeks for Calgary?
I have to see who they play, to be honest.
Just theory craft some randomness because you're Mr.
I'm Mr. But I can't just like pull it out of my ass and like it has to be well thought out theories that just are wrong.
Why? You could say they won't lose more than 2 games and they'll score
All right,
4 goals
I'm
every
looking
game
at their
pretty much.
schedule. So in the next 2 weeks, they don't play. Okay, so they play Leafs, Edmonton, and Habs. So those are all huge for them. They're gonna go 2-4.
New coach.
2-4.
Ooh, with a new coach too. Yeah, that doesn't scream good to me.
2-4.
Playing the best teams in the division with a new coach, new systems, trying to impress, that's not going to be good.
They have to make it happen,
who
man. It's do or die these next 2 weeks for Calgary. So it's interesting that you asked me that, and my prediction is 2-4. So you know what that means? They're going 4-2.
Probably, or 5-1, 6-0.
Yeah,
any of those work.
if
they have a winning record, then your curse stands true.
Yeah.
But the real debate for us is 2-3-4.
Yeah, 2-3-4
between Winnipeg and Montreal.
I moved Winnipeg up in a second. I don't know. I've liked them. They're getting it done for me. Again, this is one of those. We all have the middlers. I just think I don't know. I like them better than the other two. Montreal has fallen off after their hot start. Price is turning around, like you said, a little bit, but I don't buy into their forwards as much as I did at the beginning of the year, or at least when they were playing hot. They've cooled off and they're not scoring at the pace. They're not. They struggled with Ottawa too, which kind of made me a little against them. At least Winnipeg takes care of Ottawa. Edmonton definitely takes care of Ottawa. That's kind of where the difference is.
But the problem with that is, like Ottawa. Well, a couple teams play that way, where like they play to not give up mistakes, and then they try to capitalize on your mistakes. So when you're just not scoring, but you make a couple mistakes, you can lose those games, and that's why I think Montreal loses those games against the other teams, where like Montreal plays not to lose, or other teams play to win.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense.
It does make sense. I don't know. I think the top two lines in Winnipeg are like the best out of the three of them.
Yeah,
well,
that's true.
I guess it's hard to say that with Edmonton but like with a goalie too, and that's Edmonton's downside is if you can shut down Draisaitl, McDavid, you pretty much got them shut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that Edmonton is like, if you had to tier again within that tier that we have, I think it's safe to say that we both kind of see Edmonton as the 4. I don't think Smith's been playing out of his mind, and he's old for NHL standards.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone talks about how all these other goalies can't handle all these loads. Well, you're going to then turn around and tell me a 40-year-old can handle every game from here on out in a condensed schedule? Yeah, there's no way. And even if he does try to do that, there's at some point he's going to burn out and have 2 or 3 bad games. And if those are the last ones he plays of the regular season, you get blown out when it really matters. That could be the thing that really hurts you. I think Edmonton sucks. They're in a bit of a shitty situation because with the way that all the contracts are signed, they have a lot of money next year.
Yeah.
So like they're kind of just waiting. So they're not really a team that can go out, and it wouldn't best suit them to go out and spend assets now. They're best to kind of just take the results they get, hope they go far, and then really take next year as the next step forward.
Yep.
So that being said, it doesn't quite suit up the same as like a Toronto timeline or a Winnipeg timeline or whatever. So that's why I just don't think that they're going to really make it as far. But yeah, I have to take Montreal over Winnipeg just because obviously I have the bet with Nick, and I've been saying Montreal too all year. I don't think we've seen the best of Montreal yet. Even saying earlier this year with all the scoring, I do agree with you that a lot of the scoring was kind of fluky. I do agree that like they were performing way above expectation. But you can also say that their goalies and their defense goals prevented was way below expectation.
Yeah.
So in other words, they were hoping to win games 7-6, 5-4, and not 2-1, 3-2. When's the last time Montreal has played that style? Never. And Julien wasn't trying to play that style. It just turned into that because people didn't care about
years ago.
Style. Exactly, right? So like I think that Montreal is going to settle in. I think Price is going to There was talk today about how Price shouldn't be put on the Olympic team if there's an Olympic team, and I'm like, you're crazy.
You're drunk.
Like all this crazy talk, and it's like, I want Price to get his respect back. And that's coming from a Leaf fan. Like, I'm a Price fan. Like, I like Price.
Yeah.
And I think he's the best Canadian goalie by far. And I think that if it wasn't always about his contract, people would appreciate him way more. And I just feel like he has it within him, almost like these stars, where it's like, enough. It's time to just turn that God mode on and just win 7 of 10 and only give up 5 goals. Like, he has that in him, but he just hasn't had the team in front of him. I think he does now, and I think the coaching is going to get there, and I'm confident. But I do think Montreal and Winnipeg will be within 3 points. So I think it'll be close. I do think it'll be really close.
So between the three of them, then, because you have Edmonton in between them. Oh, no,
No,
you don't.
3 points.
Never mind, you have Edmonton 4.
Yeah, so 3 points between Montreal and Winnipeg.
Gotcha. All right. I think that's fair, and I think we did a good job of talking at least majority of the 31 teams. At least got a little bit of love there, or hate, however you want to look at it.
Never deserved it.
Yeah. Is there anything else? I know you wanted to. I think that you had a Leafs trade thing in there. Do you want to talk about that, or we can save it for next week?
That was just a quick kind of. What's that?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
I was just saying we're at like about an hour and a half, so just don't know.
Yeah, it's
save it till next week.
All I just wanted to say was just I know there was a bit of chat in our group a little bit about Leafs trades and stuff like that, and whether or not to go for it, and the timing of it all, and the assets. And I know I said go for it, and I know you kind of put it perfectly. I can't paraphrase it right now, but basically you just put something along the lines of just the residual impact of the winning, or if the Leafs win, and whether or not that's worth going for. I think that honestly, it's more of just an announcement really than anything. I think everyone just needs to chill a little bit. Leaf fans, I'm starting to lose my mind a little bit here in Leafland with all the conversations that are going on. And it's just kind of like, I think everyone I think I said this to you, that like, the way I feel is that I've just stood in line for a roller coaster for years with all these people. And we finally got up to the roller coaster. I'm not a roller coaster fan. This is just obviously an analogy. Yeah. You get up to the roller coaster after waiting hours and hours and hours, and you say, actually, you know what? I'm good. Let's just walk through and go to the next line. That's the way I feel right now.
You know what? When I lived, I didn't get back into hockey until I left Toronto. I couldn't stand it. The listening to sports radio there was brutal for me. Not because I've never been like a huge Leaf fan like the people around there. It's just the whining and all that, and they can't when they got a good thing, they can't be happy. Like it's I just don't understand because of all the losing and being so attached to the team. I'm sure I don't get it that way. But I am a Dolphins fan, so I do understand what it's like to lose.
Oh, I guess all right. The tough thing is that we're in a situation now, and it's like, if you ask a Leaf fan, would you rather have been no season or a season? There's no one that would say that they would have preferred no season. Well, if you prefer that there's a season, would you prefer there's no playoffs, or you prefer there's just regular season? Well, no one's going to say they prefer just regular season. They want to see playoffs. Okay, well, would you prefer it's normal playoffs, different playoffs, longer playoffs, shorter playoffs, playoffs without hitting, whatever the playoffs are? Does it matter? This is the sequence that you all wanted. So now that the Leafs are going to go on a run, potentially, hopefully, they could, let's say they win the cup, and then everyone's just going to talk about how it doesn't count because no one could go to the games, or how it doesn't count because it's not a regular season.
I don't think the Leafs fans would bathe in a cup. That's the thing. That's the thing I don't understand, is that all the complaints and all that, and then I don't get it.
Everyone would be like, oh, well, it doesn't count. And then it would happen and be like, oh, yeah, actually, no, it does count. Yeah. And that's the way it's like,
it doesn't count if you lose, but if you win, it counts. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, right? So it's just like, I'm starting to realize that, like, a lot of Leaf fans will never be happy. And it was never really about trying to make them happy. Like, I always try to have a very educated opinion. And a lot of the time where I try to take my opinion is not even of opinion, is more of, here's a bunch of facts. With these facts, this is how I feel.
Yeah.
That's how I try to go about it.
That's me too.
So it's just kind of like, with a lot of the facts of what's going on, the Leafs are going for it.
Of course.
The Leafs are going to trade something big. I think they're going to have the biggest trade of the trade deadline. I think it's going to happen within the next 10 days based on the schedule. And I think it's going to be two pieces. I think it's going to be one trade where it's a blockbuster, and then I think they bring in somebody afterwards that it's like, after the first trade, everyone's like, oh my God, this is crazy. And then after the trade, it's like, this is legit. Like we're going for it. Like, I don't know what those trades are yet, but I think something tells me Forsberg. I don't know what it is, but Forsberg out of Nashville, I wouldn't be surprised to see a mega trade with Ekholm and Forsberg going to Toronto.
It'd be crazy.
Which would be, you can only imagine what would have to go back for that.
Yeah, but I guess that's what everyone's going to focus on, right?
But hey, if you have these players that
you know what no one's talking about now that we used to talk about every day, all day, all the days, every day? Marner's contract. Trading Nylander.
Oh yeah, that shit too. Yeah.
How are we going to get our backup goalie? Like.
Yeah. And that's the one thing why I wanted to bring up the whole franchise tag thing or whatever, because like, I know the radio needs to fill hours of conversation. Of course,
yeah, that's the problem with 24-hour news.
Conversation, right? The same conversation that gets recycled over and over and over again. And you're like, if only this conversation just had another element added to it. It's like, if you even bring up the concept or the potential of the expansion tag or another buyout, it changes the entire game. Which we just talked about how expansion is too early to talk about all these things and how there's so many different variables. Like, there's so many variables right now. There's so many sellers. There's so many non-buyers. There's so many teams who could care less if they made the playoffs. Like, there might only be 6 teams who actually care about going for it this year. And if that's the case, why stand back? Why not be the aggressive team that goes out and does it? You have prospects that kill it for Nashville if that's the trade that happens in 3 years. Who cares? It's a team outside your division, and you hopefully want a cup.
I never understood, too. Prospects are only as good as they turn out to be. And how often do we trade these prospects and they're nothing anyway?
Well, the biggest problem with Toronto specifically is that we know with all the committed cap, you need entry-level contributors.
I don't know.
So that's the problem, that if you get rid of your best prospects, you don't then have the cheap contributors. That's the only element that's a problem.
Yeah, but we have talked about how Toronto's one of those places that attracts the overseas kind of talent that could be those contributors specifically. They also seem to have a talent of attracting the cheap veterans that are huge difference makers with Thornton and Spezza. Like, I don't know. It's a weak argument to me.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, is if Toronto goes for it, and even if they don't make it, and they have $4 million next year, and they have to fill 5 spots, well, the people that know, hey, I can't get another job, or maybe I got bought out, or maybe I didn't have a good year and I want to have a good bounce back or whatever.
Pull a Ray Bourque and win a cup, like,
or play for their hometown team or whatever, right? Like, there's gonna be another Simmons, there's gonna be another Joe Thornton, there's gonna be other guys like this, even if it's for 1 year, who cares? And that's why, like, when I've thrown out guys like VC and whatever in trades, it's like, it's not because they're not great or whatever, but it's like, that's the spot you have to improve on.
Yep.
So, like, you move the spot and then you improve on it. And so I just think that Leafs fans need to chill. But I think the expectation is, or should be, high. But I think that everyone needs to also understand that it is the season. Everyone's playing under the same conditions. It's still a Stanley Cup. Everyone's going to have their name engraved on the cup. There will not be an asterisk on the cup. So
the playoffs are going to be more legit than they were last year, technically.
What's that?
The playoffs in theory are more legit than last year because there's no 5.
I think last playoffs were probably the hardest playoffs to win.
That's true too.
I think. Just with the bubble and look how many teams got upset.
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, you're right.
And you had to win 3 extra games, 4 extra games. So I think it was the hardest playoffs to win ever, especially being in a bubble, no family, no whatever as well. But this year, without that being the case, the ride's hopefully going to be fun. If it's short, that's what life is like being a Leaf fan. I don't think it's going to be. I think we can expect to get to at least the Final 4. and then face a St. Louis or face a Vegas. And that's what we all want.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we just need to enjoy this and chill the fuck out.
Yeah, man, for sure. All right, let's go watch some hockey. The dog's
Cool.
going ape shit.
Let's do it.
All right, have a good one. Peace out.